As most people know, every immigrant group that comes to the United States has some element to it that is not positive. There were these small groups called the Black Hand, and they basically were extortionist groups. They weren't organized. There was no great conspiracy. I mean, we've done enough research to know that. But they had learned that by calling themselves the Black Hand, they would get some kind of power, that people would be afraid of them, so that they would actually threaten people with bodily harm for a family if they did not pay a ransom or extortion. And that did exist around the turn of the last century. But even at the very earliest stages of motion picture production, they picked up on this and they popularized it. And therefore, unfortunately, the immigrants got known as if they were, many of them, involved in this type of an operation, and it was just a small, minuscule part. Less than 0.1% of Italian Americans are involved in any types of crime, organized crime.
People's perception of Little Italy is, you know, a place you go down to when, you know, you see tough guys walking around, and it's like the TV show The Sopranos or something like that. And in fact, you know, it's not like that. It's, you know, the majority of people that live in that neighborhood or have lived in that neighborhood were you know, church-going people, hard-working people, people who put their kids through school, you know, working two jobs sometimes, and people who were never mixed up in some of the antics that, you know, people find so fascinating. You know, that aspect of Little Italy they find so fascinating, or people imagine is going on.
I can't tell you how many times non-Italians, when they hear you're Italian and you're from Little Italy, they literally think that you're all organized crime connected. Growing up in this neighborhood, you had a choice. And your choice was either to go the right way or the wrong way. And unfortunately, people go the wrong way.
You always had that influence, not that you respected them. My father always used to teach us that we could we didn't have to lock our doors. He would say to us, you know, we could open our door to anyone because we had nothing to hide. Whereas some of those people had to look over their shoulder all the time.
The good people in the neighborhood basically went to work, they worked for a living, they did their job, they came home, they took care of their families, and they didn't get involved in that element. That element was around here like it is in every ethnic group.
Look, you know, some of my friends were, you know, parents were that way, where they, you know, they didn't work and they, you know, they had everything, and we always questioned it, you know, how they have all this stuff, you know, how do they get cars? I don't have a car. We never had a car. Got a car when I got married, you know, but and it was very innocent and naivety, if you will, you know, we were naive to the fact because these were our friends. We never thought that anybody could, and then when you read about something in the paper, then it enlightened you a little more, and then as you got older and more out in the world, then you realized there was two kinds of people in the world.
This notion of a Black Hand, or other names that have been used, mafioso, mafia, have penetrated into the public psyche of America. We have the latest version of this in The Sopranos, which is the popularized television show. Unfortunately, it is going to probably be syndicated for years and years to come, and it will be a tragedy in terms of the way the person in Kansas City, where there are very few Italian Americans, sees Italians and thinks of us in this way.
I don't want to be known as, like, you know, like Joe Tough Guy. I don't want that. I wanted to be known as, yeah, I'm Joe Marone, you know. I live on Mulberry Street, but I'm not a buffoon, you know, and that's what I took deep offense to that.
And it's something that won't stop until Italians come together as a people and say, enough. We had it with The Sopranos, we had it with The Godfather. I remember one time during the St. Gennaro feast, this wacky woman comes over to my booth and she tells me, excuse me, are you from here? So I said, yes. You gotta help me, I need somebody in organized crime. And I looked at her, I said, are you crazy? I said, what do you need somebody in organized crime for? I want to have somebody wiped out. So I sent her to 19 Elizabeth Street, which is the 5th precinct.